Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a really fascinating and, honestly, a highly counterintuitive philosophy about how we live our lives. Think about it. From the moment we're born, we're pretty much taught that setting and achieving goals is the ultimate key to happiness and success, right? But what if that exact mindset is actually the very thing making us miserable? The author and philosopher Yufeng presents this really profound paradox in his text. He argues that living strictly for your goals doesn't bring joy at all. Instead, it actually brings anxiety, dullness, and a whole lot of sorrow. So let's dive into this and see exactly how he breaks it all down. So, are you living right now, or are you just waiting? It's a pretty heavy question. Just be totally honest with yourself for a second. Are you currently sacrificing your present happiness, kind of putting off your joy, for some elusive future milestone? Maybe it's a big promotion, graduating, or finally hitting some financial target. Well, Shufeng challenges us to realize that when we do this, we aren't actually experiencing life. We're really just holding our breath. Which brings us to Section 1, the goal trap. The author draws a really stark contrast between two entirely different ways of moving through the world. First, there's living for goals. He bluntly states that this approach just leads to a life of sorrow, misfortune, anxiety, and just dullness. And why is that? It's because you're constantly feeling like you're lacking something until that one specific goal is finally achieved. But then you have the alternative, living for the process. According to the text, this is where richness, joy, and true happiness actually reside. Because life is a journey, right? When we look back, the screen of our memories isn't going to be filled with targets or numbers on a spreadsheet. It's filled with the process. It's filled with all those little details. Let's move right into Section 2. Life is in the details. If life isn't just about those grand milestones, what is the actual process of living really made of? Well, it's a collection of vivid, seemingly ordinary moments. It's those childhood memories of catching squirrels up in the hills, or the simple thrill of playing cards with your colleagues. It's staying up way too late arguing over a game of chess with your brothers, the absolute electric feeling of a first kiss, or honestly, just taking a leisurely drive with your family. These totally relatable, deeply human experiences are the actual fabric of a colorful life. Shufeng argues that when we become completely obsessed with a future target, we become entirely blind to these everyday details, and neglecting them means we are quite literally missing out on our own happiness. So what actually happens to us when we ignore the present for an unseen future? That brings us to Section 3, the endless waiting game. 3 million. That number represents a very real, very tragic anecdote shared by the author. He describes this couple running a business abroad who have already amassed a ton of wealth, yet they live in this completely bare, rented apartment. They have nothing but a bed, a TV, 2 simple stools, and just some basic kitchenware. And why? Because their ultimate goal is to hit 3 million before they return home to, quote-unquote, enjoy life. They've literally lived like this for years. They're suffering in the present for a totally elusive future. And honestly, they don't even know if they'll be capable of enjoying life when that arbitrary number is finally reached. And the stories in the text actually get even more heartbreaking. There's an account of 2 project managers from a construction company. They lived in extreme poverty, just completely refusing to spend a single extra dollar on themselves. They were saving absolutely every penny for their children's future college education. But tragically, just 1 week before they were finally scheduled to return to their country, they were killed instantly in a car accident. This right here is the ultimate danger of the waiting game. They gave up all their present joy for a future that simply never arrived. And this phenomenon isn't just an individual thing. It builds up on a massive societal level. It's not just individuals saving money, entire groups spend their lives waiting. Regardless of the belief system, the pattern is pretty much identical. The text observes that Christians have been waiting for Jesus to return for nearly 2,000 years. Buddhists have awaited the end times for over 2 millennia. Marxists wait for the arrival of communism. And a whole generation of Chinese people born in the 1970s spent their youth waiting for the modernization of industry by the end of the century. The core observation here is that these massive groups of people essentially consume their brief, precious lives just waiting around for future events. Consider the really specific sacrifices people make for these future ideals. The author points out how some democratic movement activists, in pursuit of their political goals, sacrifice their family lives, cause endless worry to their parents, and even lose their youth to prison sentences. They might even turn against their own friends, hurling insults at one another. Similarly, over in the spiritual realm, practitioners can obsessively seek the Tao, or high-level teachers, becoming so fixated that they completely forget the actual meaning of life and the joy of the practice itself. In both cases, they're essentially burying their beautiful lives in pursuit of an illusory goal. And sadly, this obsession bleeds outward. Here's Section 4, the collateral damage. Goal obsession actively harms communities in this really vicious cycle. It starts with step 1. A person becomes totally fixated on a goal. Then step 2 happens. In their absolute desperation to achieve it, they lose their sense of perspective and, frankly, their sanity. Which leads directly to step 3, hurting others. To cross that finish line, people will resort to almost any means. They might lie, deceive, betray friends, scheme against their colleagues, oppress the weak, or even abuse their own children. The drive for the goal becomes this ruthless master that justifies cruelty. And the author asks a pretty powerful question here. Why suffer and cause so much suffering for something so fleeting? So if we shouldn't obsess over the future, how exactly are we supposed to live? Let's check out Section 5, Making Goals Serve You. This right here is the core philosophy, the absolute golden rule of the Chotex. Do not suffer yourself for goals. Shufeng urges us to just be happy when we can. If you can indulge in joy for even a single moment, do it. Focus on beautiful things. Don't overly worry about the future, and definitely don't walk around frowning over results. He reminds us that life is incredibly fleeting, the earth is going to keep turning, and the dance will go on long after we're gone. So, live lightly. Don't mistake the game for reality. Now, you might be thinking, okay, wait, does this mean I shouldn't have any goals at all? No, not at all. A life completely without goals would be pretty empty, boring, and lonely. But here is the absolutely critical shift in perspective. A goal is a tool to serve your life, not a master to enslave it. You create the goal to give your life a bit of direction and fun, but your life absolutely does not exist merely to serve the goal. To really ground this idea, the author gives us a very personal example. As the founder of Lifechanyuan, his stated goal is to create the Lifechanyuan era. But how does he actually approach it? He says he just finds the process enjoyable. He spends his days talking, laughing, and just having fun with his community. And here's the real kicker. He says he genuinely doesn't care if the era is actually realized or not. Whether that ultimate goal is achieved doesn't bother him in the slightest, as long as there is joy in the daily work. He is completely immersed in the details and the process, and entirely detached from the anxiety of the final result. So the biggest question for you to take away from this explainer is this. Take a look at your own life. Look at the things you are striving so hard for right now. Will you let your goals serve your life, bringing you daily joy and direction? Or will you serve your goals, suffering through the present for a future that is never actually guaranteed? The choice is entirely yours. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this helps you find a bit more joy in the details of your day-to-day.